Chapter 9. Naomi. I set off on a cycle I had enjoyed many times, only this time I had a flutter of butterflies in my stomach. With Lewis cycling behind me, I racked my brain, trying to remember the conversation that had resulted in the two of us spending this afternoon together. I was sure Lewis didn't want to be alone with me. He was merely being polite. Did I want to be alone with him? Maybe it was best not to answer that question. I'm looking forward to this, Lewis said as we entered the cycle path. I've only cycled about Eden Cove and haven't explored further. I should have known he would be chatty, and it sounded like he expected me to be his tour guide. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Would it be so bad if I gave this guy a chance? After all, Mum kept raving about what a great worker he was, but then again, he enjoyed winding me up, and of course there was his friendship with Joshua. That was never a good sign. The start of the cycle path comprised several twists and turns, and the bushy hedgerow obscured the way ahead. When the path opened up, I pulled over to the side, waiting for Lewis. I could at least be hospitable and tell him where we were going and what he would see on our cycle. He stopped beside me. Rather than looking at me, he smiled and waved at someone further ahead. This time I did roll my eyes, assuming he was smiling at some girls he'd met. Would it be campers, or maybe someone he'd met while out with Joshua? Or maybe girls he'd met at a quiz night at the Lion and Lamb pub? But it wasn't potential girlfriends. It was the twins, Dory and David from number 6. What was wrong with me? Why was I imagining Lewis surrounded by adoring girls? And why did I care? Dory chatted about their cycle and the things they'd seen, while David quietly observed the interaction. I struggled to take in much of what Dory had to say, too busy chastising myself for my negative thoughts towards Lewis. When Dory finished her tale, the twins raced off towards Sycamore Street. They're hilarious, Lewis said as we resumed our cycle. We cycled into the gentle sea breeze, the familiar salt air bringing a smile to my lips, easing my guilty conscience. I couldn't understand why my emotions were flip-flopping all over the place this summer. Coming home to Eden Cove always entails a strange mix of emotions. Our house is constantly bustling with activity. Mum can drive me crazy with all her energy and songs. And yet, although I prefer peace and quiet, the familiarity of home offers comfort and safety. Was my disquiet down to my resits or something else? Or someone else? Lost in my thoughts, I cycled faster, trying to push them away. A ringing bell behind me brought my attention back to the moment. Hey, laughed Lewis as he sped up beside me. Are you trying to ditch me already? I thought you would wait until I was in unknown territory. Sorry, I forgot you were there. Ouch! I assumed the laughter that followed meant he wasn't offended, but it wasn't fair to take out my frustrations on him. I resolved to try harder. No, sorry, I meant I was trying to figure out some stuff. I forgot I was supposed to be showing you the sights of our coastal path. It's fine, Naomi. Let's just enjoy the cycle at whatever speed you want to go. We cycled in silence for several minutes. To our right, the familiar sounds of summer hummed their happy melodies, waves swooshing in to play with the beach, the swishing of the long dune grass as it danced backwards and forwards. To our left, Eden Cove gave way to the beauty of the English countryside, rolling green fields, cows lazily chewing, and the happy notes of birds chirping in the hedgerows. Above us, white wispy clouds floated against a bright blue sky. The day was perfect for a bike ride, a day to be thankful rather than dreading the horrible future exam. After we passed a group of cyclists, Lewis rode up beside me and kept pace to ensure we cycled side by side. It must have been amazing to grow up next to the sea. Yes, it was special, although how much do we appreciate these things when we're children? True, but I'm sure as you look back on your childhood, you must have special memories. I glanced over at him and giggled. How old are you? He raised his eyebrow. Again, ouch! Our laughter floated off in the sea breeze. You are right, it was lovely growing up here, but sometimes being tied to the campsite was annoying. It's always been difficult for Mum to separate the two. And when she wasn't busy with the campsite, she would be getting involved in some community project. Yeah, I was surprised that she took that family back to your house this morning rather than just taking them to the office. I nodded. Exactly. Maybe Lewis was an ally. It wasn't just me that saw Mum's behaviour as strange. With Lewis on my side, I told him other stories of my campsite grievances. When I was 10, I had a prominent role in a school assembly. Mum was supposed to be there, but a campsite issue kept her from coming to cheer me on. I cried myself to sleep that night. He looked at me and our eyes locked, but I didn't understand his expression. He didn't speak until he looked ahead, but I bet she was there lots of other times. Before I could school my reactions, my mouth gaped open and I glared at him, but he wasn't looking at me. He was still looking into the distance. Something about his far-off look took the sting off his words. What was his story? Were his words more about his own family than mine? I wasn't sure if he expected a response, but it seemed important to keep talking and fill the void between us. I guess my gran was saying something similar to me the other day. I know I probably sound ungrateful and spoiled, but sometimes I just wanted my mum to myself. The laughter of earlier dipped from Lewis's eyes, replaced with something else. Was it concern, or was he judging my selfish admission? He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I get that. And I guess when we're kids, we don't see the world the way the grown-ups do. I thought about his words for a few seconds. That's a good way to put it. He manoeuvred behind me while we passed oncoming cyclists. When he returned to my side, a smile replaced his frown of a few minutes ago, and we were back to small talk. Have you all worked in the campsite during the summers? Yes, it's a family business. Dad has long holidays as a college lecturer, so he was there to help during the busiest times. I like working with Rebecca, my sister. We're really close. I miss not having her around this summer. What about when it comes to Joshua? Lewis looked at me, his teeth set together. I giggled at his expression. Joshua's fine. He's my younger brother, that's all. And then I realised I knew nothing about Lewis. He hadn't mentioned his family. Do you have siblings? He shook his head. The sparkle of his green eyes drained. His shoulders slouched and the conversation halted. Several pedal strokes passed before he spoke. No, it's just me and Dad. That was the second time this afternoon he'd hinted at family issues. I wasn't sure if it was okay to ask questions. What if he didn't want to talk about himself? Or what if he did? Although he hadn't been holding back on asking me questions. I took a deep breath and bravely ventured into getting to know you territory. So where did you grow up? Nottingham. Asking questions seemed to be his forte, whereas providing answers seemed much more challenging for him. So what brought you to the Suffolk coast? I continued. The grin was back. Summer work by the sea. I gave a silent scream, then sped up and left him in the dust cloud of my acceleration. I could hear his laughter as I focused on the path ahead. The sound fueled my annoyance at him. Glancing down at my watch, my shoulders drooped at the thought of spending any more time with this annoying boy. What was it with Lewis? I was trying. The chink in his armour had encouraged me to at least be civil to him, but he excelled at winding me up. If only Ellen were here, she would know how to deal with him. I was clueless. A little further on, I slowed down and pointed out a path to the beach. We'll stop here for lunch. He nodded and followed my lead as I jumped off my bike and guided it onto the sand. We took off our rucksacks and sat on the soft beige sand. I waited until he was halfway through his sandwich and then returned to our earlier questions, determined to make him talk about himself. So what is your most fun memory from growing up in Nottingham? Was it pretending to be Robin Hood? He raised his eyebrow. Haha, yes. Everyone in Nottingham thinks they are Robin Hood. He shook his head, but I saw the smile as he looked away. So if you didn't play at being Robin Hood, what did you do? Hung out with my friends, got through school. I studied history at university and now I'm waiting to hear about PhD funding. I'm working part-time in a campsite over the summer keeps you gainfully employed until you find out? Absolutely. He took his trainers and socks off and dug his toes into the sand. Wouldn't you rather be somewhere else? He looked out to the sea. Like where? I shrugged. I don't know. Somewhere more exciting, like London, or more exotic, like Europe or the US. Lewis sighed. Despite what you might think about your life, this is a beautiful place to live, and your family is great. There's a lot for you to appreciate here. Something about the tone of his voice irked me, but I didn't know why. Maybe it was because he was calling me out on my bad attitude, or maybe it was because he sounded so superior. I jumped up. Oh, so you think you know me now? I turned towards my bike, once again preparing to storm away from Lewis. I knew I was overreacting. Or was I? What gave him the right to bombard me with questions about my life, probe into my innermost feelings about my family while he gave little information about himself? Lewis was up in a flash, blocking my way to the bikes. I didn't mean it like that. I'm not having a go at you, Naomi. I was merely pointing out that living by the sea is a much better environment than a lot of other places. I shot him a cold glare. At least I hope that's how it came across, although maybe I wasn't as scary as I thought because he burst out laughing. I screeched and pushed past him, desperate to get to my bike and cycle away from Lewis as quickly as I could. Naomi, Naomi! I didn't look back, continuing to cycle as quickly as I could. He caught up with me in no time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you mad. I slowed down, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of looking at him or speaking to him. He sighed beside me. Please, Naomi, I don't want to argue. I'd like to get to know you. I slammed on my brakes and stood off my pedals. Lewis was a few metres in front of me before he stopped. He cycled back to me. I looked into his eyes, trying to determine if they were sincere. He smiled. And my traitorous stomach flipped. Can we please be friends? He asked. How was I supposed to answer that when I didn't know how I felt? Or maybe I didn't want to admit how I felt. I was so confused. The butterflies continued to flutter in my stomach. I wanted to cycle slowly back to Eden Cove and enjoy this moment with Lewis. But I also wanted to cycle as quickly as possible to escape from him and all my confusing thoughts. I pushed off and resumed our cycle. I guess the part of me that wanted to spend time with him won. I eased off in the speed. He seemed to take that as confirmation as he grinned at me. Okay, let's stick to the safe topic of conversation. What is your take on all the Eden Cove lighthouse stories? Joshua and his friends monopolised the conversation about the lighthouse. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now see, you've just risen in my estimation a lot with that comment. It's good to know not to pay too much attention to Joshua's opinion on life and that you're open-minded enough to hear what others have to say. Lewis matched my pedal stroke as we continued to cycle side by side. Joshua watched a lot of Spy Kid type stuff when he was growing up, as did his annoying friends. One summer, they believed the lighthouse was haunted. Mum and Dad were horrified when they found out. They sat him down and explained there was no such things as ghosts and haunted buildings. By the next summer, they imagined it was occupied by foreign spies, and the following summer, they wanted to explore the secret tunnels below the lighthouse. And what about the stories of the gunfight or the person hanging from the lighthouse? You're just like Joshua, aren't you? Hoping for stories of adventure and intrigue. He shrugged his shoulders. It's easier to imagine tales of adventure in a place like Eden Cove. Every time you turn a corner, you see another building bursting with history. Even Sycamore Street and its strange collection of houses. What has happened in your street since it came into being? Those houses have been there for over 100 years. In that time, there have been wars, conflicts, family dramas, changes in monarchy, changes in politics, countless stories. I've never thought about it like that. Look at you, Mr. History Man, getting me to think about my street in a new way. And just like that, we were laughing, no longer pushing each other to unknown limits. I was so confused. Upon returning to Eden Cove, I guided Lewis along the path behind the campsite leading to the lighthouse. Let me show you my favourite part about the lighthouse. We got off our bikes and leant them against the old white walls. Lewis followed me. I stopped when I got to the carving, a simple outline of a cross on a pedestal of 2 steps. As I always did, I traced the outline of the cross with my fingers, my gaze upon the cross. I've no idea who carved this on the wall. We've been here for 15 years, but I know little about Eden Cove's history. I looked round at Lewis. I know, shocking, right? My attention went back to the cross. But I love this carving. There is something about it that reminds me that Jesus protects me and I don't need to worry about life's storms. Lewis glanced at the cross and then perched on the wall. This place is special, Naomi. He looked at the carving of the cross. Instead of looking at the carving, my eyes were drawn to the boy observing it. He had me hooked. I wanted to know Lucy's story. I wanted to know him. Because something was bothering him underneath the laid-back attitude.